Welcome to New Tracks Workshop. My name is Jim Kello. I'm the creator and host for New Tracks, where mentors help modelers build. Thanks so much for coming. I hope you come back often and tell your friends about our show. These Saturday workshops are a new project for New Tracks. They've resulted from comments I've received from modelers about scratch building and Chris Blackmar's interest in producing and leading this effort. The segments are structured like the popular build-along segments on our Wednesday evening shows, except these Saturday shows are designed to show modelers how to scratch build a model. I personally believe that scratch building is one of the most creative parts of model railroading, and I think you'll agree if you try it. Here is your opportunity to work with some skilled modelers to learn how to do it. You will learn the steps, the skills, the techniques involved in scratch building a model in any scale you want. There are no kits to buy, only the needed scratch building supplies. The plans that will be used for the model, you can download on your computer at no cost. The show's moderator, Chris Blackmar, is a very talented and artistic modeler, and he and his guest will guide you through the complete scratch building process, one small step at a time. After all, that's what mentoring is all about. If you're a beginner, I hope you'll join in and experience the thrill of completing a scratch-built model and being able to stand back and say, I built that. If you're a more experienced or advanced modeler, I hope you'll join in and offer your advice and knowledge to less skilled modelers and even get some fresh ideas yourself. The live shows will, of course, be recorded on our YouTube channel, so you can refer to the information later if you need to. In addition, I hope you'll visit our website, newtracksmodeling.com, and subscribe. You'll need to confirm the email that you received to verify your address. And after that, you'll receive all of the notice of our future shows, as well as the login links to attend. If you would prefer to watch the series on YouTube, you can do that by going to our channel, New Tracks Modeling, ring the bell, and click all. Therefore, you'll get all of the notice for the start of all of our future shows on the channel. If you can spare a little time, I hope you'll consider joining our management team to help us plan and produce any of our future shows. Please contact me at Jim Kello at newtracksmodeling.com, and let's discuss your interest. So welcome to the New Tracks Workshop. I look forward to seeing your finished models and, of course, hearing any suggestions for future shows you may have. Now, here is Chris Blackmar to start your scratch building journey.
Let's get this show on the road. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us for this New Tracks workshop meeting. And today we're going to kind of take a look at starting to build the mock-ups and hopefully a few more comments on doing the cutouts and the drawings and extrapolating dimensions from drawings. And I'm going to kick off here at the beginning. We do have some drawings now up on our website, and underneath the work bench tab there. So if you want to download some of those drawings, they are there for you to download. And I'm going to go through here in just a minute and have Paul Egery, who also has a set of drawings up there, go through his drawings real quick for you and give you his thoughts. Just to let you know that one of our New Tracks back behind the scenes crew here, he's not on currently, but he went through and drew at least 3 different iterations of the drawing set that is up there for your use based on the concept drawing. Now, the concept drawing that we showed last week is from Todd Gamble Art. untitled.com, and we've placed a link on the website so you can take a look at that concept drawing and download that to your desktop. You can then download the dimensional drawings that Richard Wolfinger has created, and you can also download the paper templates for the model, paper model or templates that Paul Egri has created. So I wanted to see if Heath is on. We have a gentleman by the name of Heath, and I think it's pronounced Trololope. I know he's a baker and he's at work, and he was going to try to step on and step off a couple of times because he's baking, and I think he needs to watch his cookies and maybe cinnamon rolls. I don't know. Are you here, Heath? I'm not seeing you in my participants list, but just in case you logged on as somebody else. Okay, I'm not seeing him. Let me get the comments about from Paul Egri on his drawing set and how he extrapolated sizes and dimensions from the drawing, and then I'll kind of pick it up and we'll see if Heath joins us here. Paul, just to let you know, if Heath does join us, because I know he is at work, I'm going to interrupt you. So, but with this, so I'm going to let Paul give us a few comments on his drawing set.
I don't know how to put anything on the computer, so if you can put any of the drawings up on screen, I'll be glad to answer any questions about them.
Okay. And I think that Will is working on that right now. And how when you looked at that concept drawing, how did you come up with the dimensions that you were kind of looking at? Let's say the basic, side dimensions and the end dimensions and the height dimensions.
What I did basically is I just, there's no actual dimensions. What I did is I just used scale chart and made what I felt balanced itself out and fit. So, the actual size might be 25 feet wide. I may have made it 20 feet, doesn't matter, but it all fits within the parameters that I made.
Okay. And can you go through a little bit about what I'm calling eye candy on the roof, the cupola, and things like that?
Well, the same thing. The cupola is actually from a is actually a cupola from a previous build, and I just enlarged it a little bit again to make it look and fit more with what the with what that drawing is. Again, it's not exact, but it follows that same flavor.
Okay. And for the side dimensions and things like that, you're just kind of leaving it up to the modeler to determine the side dimensions. And then you had also mentioned to me that you were trying to make it so that they could extend the structure.
Well, what I did is it has a main structure, and then at the end of the main structure, it has an ice bunker. Well, what I'm doing is I'm making the ice bunker as a single unit, so that all you'd have to do would be to copy more ice bunkers and add as many ice bunkers to the end of that building as you have room for or you like.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. And one more time, I'm just going to ask if Heath is available here. I'm not seeing him on the list. And I'm going to real quick, try to open up something here, drawings, and go full screen. And escape and Okay, and let's see here. Give me my Zoom back. And oops, on Zoom channels. Zoom. And let's see here. I'm gonna take you off of. I don't know if people can see the cold storage plant here, but this is the Todd Kimball rendering of this ice plant. And so this is what we were kind of working with. I think if you wanted to extrapolate dimensions off of this thing, you know that the door here is like 8.5 foot wide. So you can, you know, take from this concept drawing that this is going to be, you know, like 3 or maybe 4 in length. This is probably 1 or 2 in length. So something like that. And in the end here, you've probably got 1 or 2. You can always go through and count clapboards. You know that a door is going to be like 7 foot, 6 inches, 8 inches, somewhere thereabouts. And you can kind of count clapboards off of a real photo if it's a real photo of a structure. If you have a partial view of the roofs and you've got a tar paper roofing or a steel siding roofing, you can kind of guesstimate if it's a 3 or 4 foot wide, and then you can count the number of roofing beams going across. This structure has some real interesting things on the top here that one kind of needs to think about up front and what you're going to be doing with it. If you're going to be doing anything special with the roofing and adding eye candy, now is a good time to start thinking about that in the planning stages. I intend on running some piping from the water tank over into the tall structure here, and probably have the water piping also go either between the cupola and the water tank, or coming down and entering in just below the cupola, probably about midpoint, going into the roof. The water tank here, we made it oversized on the drawings that Richard has created. It's because I kind of liked an oversized drawing, and we were looking at a potential commercial casting also to use as that, but we will also show the scratch building aspect of a water tank. But right now you'd need to make use of the size of the water tank that you want to think about, and you need to determine if you're going to make it out of a wood or a metal, kind of a corrugated metal type of thing. The other thing that's interesting here is this big tall smokestack. I don't know if people want to have that or not, and it's kind of like, I'm not sure why a ice house would have that, but it's kind of neat. And so I'm going to go on ahead and throw that in, and maybe they're just using some sawdust or something to run some of the steam engines, or something to run some compressors or something. I don't know, but anyway, there's that. On the back side of this tall structure, I'm probably going to have some electrical outlets and conduits and things. So I've got to be considering castings for that, or if I'm going to be running a scratch build on that at this point for that type of thing. Do I want a gas meter or not? Maybe the condensers and the compressors inside this structure are somehow being powered from gas. The other thing is these light poles. I really like the light poles here, And so do I want to have power coming from the light poles into the building? And do I want to have a junction box or not? Those are all type of details that one can kind of consider. The other thing here is the roofing. You got to consider what kind of roofing do you want. If you do a little bit of research, and we will put up two little short threads on history of ice houses that just have some interesting tidbits about them. And that'll be underneath the research tab that we're currently building on the NewTracks website. But apparently in the old days, a lot of roofs were actually painted white to help with the summer heat. Also, they did not appear to use corrugated metal on the roofings. I kind of like corrugated metal because I think it weathers neat. And it's kind of a caricature anyway, so it's kind of up to you how prototypical you want to get. But if you want to stay real prototypical, a shingle type of roof may be a better avenue to go. Paul brought up that the awnings around this thing, he made them so that they are more of a fabric type material, again, because of the heat generated in the summer from corrugated metal. So again, you might want to think about if you want to use a a fabric type of awning, or if you would want to make that a shingled, or if you'd want to do just have board slats there or whatever. But that's just something else to think about. We also have this door, which is the main door to the dock, the loading dock area. And we have a loading dock on the far side. So I'm taking it and I'm going to build this structure that I've got just kind of like doors that are opposite of each other. And they're both the same size. It has this kind of clear stuff, that heavy plastic falling down. That would be for something kind of in a later build. The earlier time windows, I think they used other materials. So you can think about what you might want to do there is for some materials. If you just kind of want to go with the plastic type thing, it could be a real easy, simple thing to model by just taking a piece of Scotch tape, particularly if it was that frosted Scotch tape, fold it in half, kind of like, and then snip some little strips into it and glue it, and you're set to go. Otherwise, you could do something similar with paper or something, but we'll get to that when we get there. But a real interesting thing here is it looks like there's a breeze coming out. That was a nice little tidbit that Todd added to his concept drawing here. I will note that Paul Egri decided to name his structure after me. I thank you for that. But if you really don't want my name on it, that's fine and dandy. And, you know, we may be able to get something else. If you want to name something else, Paul can probably explain to you how to remake that texture if you don't know how to do that. The piping here, we'll probably just use some styrene. And another thing would be like a 1/4-inch dowel. Richard set it up so that you could use a 1/4-inch dowel if you wanted to do that on his drawings. The complicated thing to this is going to be this condenser unit up here. It looks like it's got some vents on the side, but we could also put vents just kind of up here by the rafters and then kind of leave the rafters as the venting. So that's something to consider for when we get down to it. Other than that, we've got the foundation. Apparently, ice houses were built off of the ground and not on concrete, but on something like wood. They were not on a slab, but they were supported again to help with the cooling during the summer months. So this one, we've got a idea of either a concrete like wall type of foundation, non-slab, or we can put it up on stilts, or we can come up with some other type of base, a stone rocks, a stone type of base, or something. So that's just something to consider. So when you are considering mounting this on your layout or next to the siding here, take into consideration how tall your foundation is. Richard's and Paul's both have foundations drawn into them. So that is something that you may want to look at. And again, you can always change those. We have the loading docks. That's also up on stilts. So I kind of like the stilts idea for the loading docks, but you can either seal it or leave it open. I think I might go through and put some broken boards and make it look like it was at one time kind of sealed, but the boards are kind of rotting out. We'll kind of approach that as we get there. And let's see here. What else was I going to say? Oh, the awning. We need to consider if we're going to do supports from the top, such as is shown here on this drawing, or if we want to support it from the bottom with wood beams or something come up. I kind of like the top coming down because I think the support from the bottom may get in the way of people throwing hooks around and coming into the ice blocks. So that keeps you from catching your, I don't know what they call those, ice hooks, but that keep you from catching that. And the only other thing I kind of thought of was the wood here on the decking. I don't know if wood decking would become kind of slick after use or not. This is something that maybe going beyond what anybody cares to think about. But, you know, did they have back in the 30s, 40s, were they at all concerned about people slipping on wet wood? So I don't know if they had something down to help on that or not, but that's something else to consider. So with that, I'd like to open it up and get some comments from the audience on any thoughts that you have conceptually on this thing as far as extracting dimensions and things. And before I do that, I want to go back real quick and check my participants list and see if Heath joined us, because I know Heath actually does some of this stuff, and I'm not seeing Heath. Will, are you seeing Heath at all? I didn't see it. I don't think Heath has been able to join us. All right. Okay, so input from the audience. It's your turn, guys. I'm going to take a moment to swig some water, and somebody push the speaker button and go for it.
Back in the 80s, Railroad Model Craftsman did a whole series of articles on ice harvesting. This was when they actually harvested the ice from lakes and stored it in buildings, such as what you're building right now.
And was that Model Railroad Craftsman or Model Railroader?
Model Railroad Craftsman.
Craftsman, yeah.
Okay, that's good information. So that's something kind of think about. And if some of you guys have got some of those older things, if you read it and pick up anything out of those that could be of value to our build here, even if we're, you know, into the build a few weeks, please bring that to our attention. How about some of the other folks here? Let me ask real quick, how many folks do we have out there that might be building this structure with us? And in what medium would you be building it?
Well, it looks interesting. This is Larry Mcdonald talking. It looks interesting to me. It's one of the first things that, that's been of interest that I might want to build that I could use on my railroad. I was going to ask you one question. First was, how do you see this building? Just as a storage building for ice? Like they said, where ice gets harvested at a lake and it comes there and they store it. And I can't quite figure out what, or else they're manufacturing the ice in there with that tower and with the, and if it's going to be going into railway cars, that loading dock to me looks like to be just for into trucks or horse wagons. And if you're going to do railway cars, you would have to have an elevated platform, the height of the cars, and a way of coming. I would assume you might tap it off the tower, and for loading in the ice hatches on top of bunker cars.
Well, you're absolutely correct, 100% all the way around on this. And we've got one of three options here in addressing the height. First of all, I plan on building this thing as an industrial type of building, serving rail and truck, or potentially wagon, primarily trucks, because I'm going to be building it for the late 30s, early 40s Depression era, really beat up, downtrodden, on a narrow gauge siding type thing. As far as the icing goes and loading it to the railway, one option is to put this thing up on a hill. And this is something we were going to go through, put it up on a hill, and you could have a slant coming down so that the ground elevations, part of it is high on one side of the structure and low on the other side of the structure, and the structure kind of being built out on like a dock. That's one idea. The second idea, and what I may be doing, is sticking it up on top of a hillside where there is a straight vertical cut going down right below it, so that the top of the reefers are coming up just about to the height of the dock. So basically all they have to do is load it from the side. The other thing that you can do is make your base tall enough so that you could fit, so it's the same height. The top of your deck there, your loading deck, is the same height as the bottom of a reefer door, so that you could load it in to the reefer doors. And then we will look at probably doing a small extension off of one end, which you can put a door in kind of the upper part of that tall end housing, and icing can come out of that. And then we'll have something coming across where there would be an icing platform that would be at about the same height as the reefer tops, so that you could just have them 2, 3, I don't care, 4 reefers if you wanted to have them parked on that siding and load them that way. The reason I'm kind of looking at that one is I think it would be an excellent place to bring in jigs and fixtures, a little bit more complicated to work with, because all of those bents would be a perfect candidate for that type of a scratch building project. And making a couple of 29-cent type fixtures and things for that would work really well. So those are the options I can think of off the top of my head. Does that give you any ideas or anything?
After I said about having an elevated platform to load the top of the cars, I thought I like the angle, the way that drawing, and I would sort of build that side as is. And you could have a retaining wall at the other side, and that's where the train is lower, and I think I'm off more at ground level with the platform, but yet it would be near the top of the cars or at the top of the cars for loading. If it's for railroad, it just could be. I might use it for down at my seaport. I'm building a large cannery, and all the fishing boats coming in, they need ice.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Never
you could also
appreciated it.
use, yeah, you could also use in that type of case, and I hadn't thought of this, but maybe some sort of a slide, kind of like what they used in mines. Sometimes they use slides going down, and that might work for your installation also.
That's what I was thinking when you talked about the platform with the, getting gungy and slippery. And I was thinking of just a portable, sort of like a chute coming out of the building, only possibly a foot off the platform. So they'd slide the ice out too. And I've got my mind like a 1929 Model A truck
Uh-huh.
or
Uh-huh.
double A
Uh-huh.
or wagons, nice little horse wagons, ice delivery wagons, and
Okay.
Berkshire Valley and people like that make that kind of stuff. So
Right, right. Okay. Well, it sounds like you're well on the way there, Larry. And you'll probably be building this in wood or styrene paper, or what are you thinking?
probably wooden plaster.
Okay, okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm gonna see if we can get one or two other folks who may be interested in building the structure. I'm trying to determine, the kind of structures, the complexity of the structures and things that the people that are here with us might be interested in. So some other feedback.
Chris, I have a comment or observation. When
Shoot.
you had the picture up there, I was looking at it and I thought, well, maybe it's pretty close. The size of the picture is pretty close to HO scale. So I went and got my ruler and I measured it, and it measured 22 feet wide, the basic structure, by 9 feet tall. And the doors were roughly, the double door was roughly about 5 scale feet wide. I was just wondering, I mean, is that relative to the size of the computer screen that I'm looking at, or?
Basically, it has to do with, I think, the way that the concept drawing was made. Again, it was just a concept drawing, and it's kind of offset, to give you the angles.
Okay.
And so I think you have to step back and kind of consider, what was kind of like the standard sizes. It's just a concept drawing. And the reason I used a concept drawing is to allow us to make these type of modifications and to get us as scratch builders thinking about ways that we can modify the thing. I didn't want to present a whole bunch of, here it is, dimension, 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 to just copy across. I want us to kind of use our brains a little bit and think about this because we want to take this skill set and apply it to other structures. But this is just kind of an idea, but you're absolutely right. It is kind of close, but I did note that I think the kind of the standard back in the days, or if you look at some other castings, you'll find that freight door was about 8.5 feet wide, somewhere thereabouts, 9 feet, and if you extrapolate that across, you'll find that the structure turns out to be just about 25 feet or so. I think Richard drew his drawings to be 31 foot or so in length. And Paul, I haven't measured yours. I'm guessing that yours are about 35. And you're muted, Paul.
Probably close to that. As I said, I just put elements together until I thought it looked and
Okay.
followed the picture.
Okay. So, Kurt, you've got an excellent observation there. But have I addressed your question, or did we get it addressed, or somebody else got some feedback on that?
Yes, I wasn't sure what you meant by concept drawing, but now I kind of got an idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's just an idea to get us going. And again, we can add to this thing. And that's why I was talking about the icing platform. We'll have to go out and kind of like, oh, do I want to do this or not? And because I didn't know if people would be interested in doing an icing platform or that kind of an extension, I chose a structure right now that's just that, a structure to kind of get us kicked off and kind of get us going. But, I just I'm trying to put something together here that will fit everybody's desire. I think we had a hand raised in the chat someplace from YouTube. Is that correct?
It's maybe it was an accident, but I see in participants, Neil Harwick has a hand up.
Okay, and Neil, you're muted right now.
Oh,
Yes,
can you hear me?
yes, we're fine.
Oh,
Go on
okay.
ahead.
Okay, yeah, great. I was interested in what Paul had said about 6 months ago. I was planning to do the ice industry back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And there is a load of videos on YouTube, documentaries, archival movies about the industry itself. So, one of the things that I didn't hear somebody say as an accessory to the building itself is they used to have these primitive conveyor belts carrying the ice from the lake up into the building. And they're primitive looking, and it really makes it much more interesting. So if there's any way you can find a place to attach, and these conveyor belts were usually attached to the end of a building. And sometimes there'd be a little structure at the top.
Right.
So this would really blow this out of the water if somebody was going to do that. The other thing that is missing in a building like this, if you want to put it in, would be these external elevators outside the building where the ice is put in if it's brought in by a cart. The blocks of ice are already carved on the lake. And then you load it into the external structure that elevates it and takes it up into the storage building.
Right.
So I see the building on the end of the plan here would be a great place to put it. So ice was brought up either by horse-drawn wagon or it was brought up by this primitive conveyor belt that goes up the side of the mountain, not the mountain, but the elevation that you want to part it in. So that would really, I think, add a lot of interesting details to the building itself. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I want to excuse myself, I'm not very good with high-tech stuff. So I'm not sure why I wasn't getting through, but I use these are a pair of dividers. And you can then take a plan. Everybody know what the dividers are from? It's like for draftsmen and things like that. And then you put it to the plan and you get a reading on, say, the windows. Then you put it right on your metal ruler with the gauges, and it tells you what the size would be in O, S, or HO. So this basically tells you at least the proportions of the building. So if a window would be, 8 feet, then you just manipulate your dividers to see what proportion of the sides of the building goes to that, and then you can judge things. The other thing that I do is when I do a lot of scratch building from photos. And one of the things I do is on the computer, I have elements, Photoshop elements. I'll take a screenshot of a picture, and then you can manipulate the size of the picture. And then you can then print out the picture and place it where you want and just judge, is it too large, is it too small? And you can keep changing the size of the picture and keep printing it out to get something that you feel is the appropriate size. And I don't do museum quality stuff, and I don't think anybody wants to pursue that. But that's another way of getting an idea in a scene, how much space will be taken? Is it too large? Is it too small? It's another easy way of doing it.
Right, you're absolutely correct. And your idea of using the dividers to get your proportions from a photo and something is quite frankly something that I do, and I do it so commonly. I didn't even think about bringing that up earlier. So yeah, I think everybody understands that, walking the dividers across. And
you can even use that photo as your plan.
Right,
if you
right,
got the right size.
right. Yeah, you can resize it down. You're absolutely right. Good input.
Okay.
Okay, how about somebody else? Is anybody planning on doing this thing potentially in styrene out there? Maybe board by board in styrene? Nobody wants to take up that challenge, huh? How about building it in styrene? Is somebody working in styrene on it out there? If you are, make sure you're unmuted and talk to us.
Chris,
Okay. Yes.
this is
Hi.
Rich.
Hi, Rich.
I'm sorry, I'm a little late here, but I was listening to your earlier comments and I'd like to address Mr. Kirk Butcher first.
Okay.
Kirk, you did a great job on estimating the width of that building. I got 21 on my scale plan.
Okay.
You had 22.
Yeah, I don't know if it's relative to the size of the screen I'm looking at or not. That's you know, because somebody, you know, you might have a bigger computer screen, might view it a little bit bigger or
Well,
smaller.
Chris and I both printed off the plan from the internet concept drawing, and it actually scales, well, the width of it doesn't, it's the angle that the building is sitting at in the concept drawing that threw me off. And I spent several nights burning the midnight oil trying to get these measurement drawings to Chris, and I was having a heck of a time, but I drew that building at 21 feet wide, but I'm thinking that that building in the rendering may be a little less in width. But then again, I tried to count the boardwalk boards in front, whether or not he might have constructed it like using either 2x6s. I think they're too small, 2x8s, 2x10s, how wide that building might end up to being. You can do that in a model drawing or a kit manufacturer's picture or a picture of a prototype structure. But I don't know if you can do that in a rendering. He just basically, that's a pencil sketch. So I had to try to draw these measurement drawings using a pencil sketch, and I think it was a crazy amount of time spent. So I just tried to make my drawings. I know Chris hasn't uploaded them yet to show you guys if you haven't been over to New Tracks to look at them either. But I tried to make it a small enough footprint to be visual, actual, or whatever you want to call it. But the way I drew it on my drawing, the footprint of the building now is about a little over 5.5 inches long by 3¼ inches wide, and that doesn't include the loading docks. But I just want to say that guesstimating that just on the computer, you did a good job.
Thank you.
Chris, I'd like to make a comment on that foundation earlier you mentioned.
Uh-huh.
Todd Gamble had some pictures on his Facebook page. I really don't believe they're copyrighted. I'm not sure, but
Okay.
I did save them to a picture file. I was gonna try to share my screen here to see if I could, but he showed 2 rows of concrete. It looks like concrete blocks under the structure. That's why I chose a 2-foot high foundation.
Okay. You should have share screen capabilities.
Yeah. Before I do that though, he had taken a feed mill kit and constructed a building similar to his rendering using the feed mill kit, and it has the rooftop eye candy that you mentioned earlier on that. That's why I was going to show that, even though there's more doors and windows on his structure than what's in this rendering.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you've got to that on there, but if you've got it, feel free to try to share it real quick.
That's wrong. Okay. And I can't do that.
Yeah, just close that window. And close that window.
Close this window?
Yeah, the one that you've got. Okay, do you have your file there that you want you've got the concept drawings? There you go. And it's going to be one of those. I think it's number 11, isn't it?
12, I want to put.
Okay, okay.
Uh,
You just double click on 12 and it should open up for us.
do you see that?
Nope, it's not opening. It's just on yours again. We're in the same boat. There we go. Okay.
Are you
So,
seeing- are you
yeah,
seeing-
we've got it. We've got it at this point in time. It's okay. So we've actually got two of them, but that's okay. So this kind of shows the
Richard,
water tank.
can you click on the double-headed arrow on the lower right?
Sorry, I forgot to do that.
Yeah, no,
Can you all see that?
it
All
did
right.
not change. There we go. Okay, we're good now.
You see how he's got the condenser on the top and it looks a lot taller than what I drew, but maybe a bit longer as well.
Uh-huh.
The water tank looks bigger too, but you see that guy standing on top, so it has to be an HO scale figure. That's bigger than 8.5 foot diameter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I saved that picture to my computer and zoomed in on it. He's got 2 rows of blocks underneath that structure. And some of that information that I sent to you earlier on the history of ice structures showed that some were on the ground with no foundation. But in keeping with us using the concept drawing, that blue drawing, he shows that on stilts. So I'm thinking it might be airflow under the building. I don't really care, but if we all choose to pick a foundation, that will still be good.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I may have to rethink my idea of closing in the foundation because of that airflow issue. So that's a good thought there and a good point. The other thing that I'm noticing here is that there's 2 different styles of supports for the awnings. But one's just the beam, and then the other one's more of the decorative picket fence type. But yeah, okay, that's a good idea photo. And I think
The other thing is just around the corner from that front awning by the man door on the front porch there on the boardwalk porch. What's that unit up on the corner of the building? It looks like a air conditioning unit of some sort.
yeah, either that or it could be a door where I've forgotten the gentleman's name that was talking earlier, where you load ice through a conveyor that lifts it up a little bit higher, or that might be a place to have the slider dock come out to slide ice down to a dock or for loading. So yeah, you could use that as a door, as a sign. You could put a sign up there, or you could put some other candy like a air conditioning vent or something. So yeah, that's a good open area to work with. The cupola, it looks like it's taller to me, probably because of the window that he used. I think he used a 2-pane window, where the concept drawing, I believe, has a single pane window. And so that's something to think about there on that. But those, when we get to that part, but I noticed too that the cupola looks like that part of it is open with like a screen or something, and then some vents underneath of it potentially.
Also looks like he's got a pipe leak there and he's got a bunch of ice on the roof.
Yeah, might be. So, okay, and it looks like there might be something going off on the
It looks
back
like it-
side there, behind the water tank, an extension of that water tank or something.
Yeah, he's
So-
got an extended platform, so you
Yeah.
got access to the top of the tank.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
Rich, Bernie here. You
Yeah,
got- Is there a picture of the backside of that building? You have one?
no,
Oh, okay,
no, he didn't have one.
okay. Knowing the concept of these ice houses, anything,
Bernie,
huh? Anything these ice
I was
houses,
gonna tell you, feel free to draw one.
no, I'm not gonna draw one, but I remember the articles in Model Railroad Craftsman. I've got the magazines. I'll have to look them up. When I see something like that, it's an ice house with a water tank.
You still there?
Yeah, I lost you there for a minute.
I put the picture down,
Put the
so.
picture back up. I need the picture. Those ice houses that have large stacks, a condensation tower on top, they made their own ice. They used steam power to run a compressor that compressed, I think it was some kind of an ammonia, which they used in refrigeration back then before we got to the more modern refrigeration. That's why you don't see like a rail spur there. These ice houses made their own ice. They did not receive it off any ponds. That's why you don't see any elevators on there or anything else. So that's my information on ice houses.
Okay, yeah, I think it was ammonium hydroxide or ammonium hydroxate,
That
I'm not
sounds
sure
familiar.
which.
That sounds
Um,
familiar.
but that they utilized. But yeah, good comments, Bernie. So I do have a question. Is anybody gonna do this in styrene? Or thinking about using styrene? Okay, let's see here. All right, well, any other thoughts or comments about the ice house in general in planning the structure or in the concept drawings or extrapolating dimensions off of a photograph or a concept drawing?
Well, when you're done with the whole house built, add a little boiler in back, a boiler house and a place for the coal. If you're
Okay.
back in that era, if you're in the more modern era, you need a diesel fuel tank to run the diesel engine that did the compressor. Just
Okay.
I thought that was a good idea. That's a good place to put my boiler and steam engine and have a separate annex.
Okay, all right.
I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that you just mentioned ammonium hydroxide or hydroxate. How did they receive it and where did they store it to be able to use it?
I don't know. It just seems to me I read someplace that it was one of those materials, but I don't know. I would imagine that they were pretty toxic, however. So I don't know how that would be. Richard, in your review of your history of the ice houses that you did you run across any of that might address that?
What was your question?
How did they store the ammonium hydroxide or ammonium hydroxide?
I didn't see any reading of that because the history I
Okay.
was looking at is all that I sent you, and I don't think it was 1800s.
Okay.
The other
I
thing I
did-
wanted to bring up to you too is that the ice has to be insulated in some way if you're going to store it. So we had a little chat session going on here. Usually, evidently, sawdust was used to insulate that. Well, you would need to have a way of, if you're not going to sell it as you sell the ice to those who want to insulate the ice on their way to people's houses, you would need to have a pile of sawdust somewhere or some way to receive the sawdust in order to insulate it in the facility itself.
You're absolutely correct. And then another thing too is that the ice houses themselves, some of them had extremely thick walls, like being up to like 2 or 3 foot thick, and they had sawdust as insulation in between the interior and exterior walls. The other thing that one could utilize, and this might be another scenic detail value, would be hay. I believe they used hay to
straw.
also, or straw to also insulate. So that might be something else that, have a few stacks of or a few bales of hay or straw, strewn out there on the loading dock, particularly on the truck side, but I don't know how they utilized it in the railroad side, but all very good thoughts and ideas. So, that's stuff we'll have to kind of look at incorporating when we get down to the detailing session. So if you are scratch building, and as you're thinking about this type of stuff, this is where it's good to have some 3x5 cards or a small little notebook that you've dedicated to your build, and to make notes of ideas as you're going through and thinking about these things. Outstanding. And then do periodical reviews of all of those notes, even though you think you know what's there. And that way you can continue to plan on various details and work that stuff into your construction as we're moving forward through the build. Okay.
Chris,
any
William
other
here,
thoughts?
just to answer a question that was placed there about the ammonia hydroxide. The ammonia refrigeration would be a closed loop system, just like current Freon, well, older Freon based and systems. It's a closed loop, so they wouldn't consume ammonia on site. So there was no need for it to be delivered or stored on site. It's a standard closed loop refrigeration cycle.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, any other thoughts or input on this from anybody before we kind of move forward a little bit here?
Hey, this is Jeff Jordan. Just on the issue of going from your sketch to plans, I don't know if you all have noticed that in the February 22 issue of Model Railroader, there's an article called Undoing Perspective and Reference Images, where the author gives you a technique to take a perspective photograph and turn it into a two-dimensional plan. It requires you make some assumptions about a standard dimension that repeats in the photograph, like the width of windows. And then he shows how you can take that perspective photograph and turn it into a two-dimensional plan.
Okay. No, I hadn't seen that, but that's great input. Also, for those of you that have not subscribed to the S-Scale Resource Magazine and the O-Scale Resource Magazine, I noticed that the S-Scale magazine, the newest volume, was just released yesterday, and maybe it was the day before, but I gleaned through that thing and I haven't fully read it, but it appears that there's also a short article not dedicated directly to extrapolation of dimensions, but it does cover some good thoughts and some basics of extrapolating dimensions. I just bring it up because it fits in with what we're doing right now. And that's a free magazine to anybody who wants it. It's O-Scale Resource or S-Scale Resource, and the magazine specifically is the most recent version of the S-Scale Resource. Let's see here. Let me ask this real quick. Right now, we're just barely over an hour long. Is there anybody that really wants this thing cut off right now, or should we just kind of continue a little bit longer here and maybe talk a little bit about a few other items? I'm trying to determine my show length to fit people. So if anybody has any real strong thoughts about this, and I'm going to go back and double check here, and lost my participants thing. And
Got one question, Chris.
shoot,
The ice house thing was really good. Now, if they're going to have a conveyor, bring it up to the platform to put them in the reefers, where can you get the cubes, the plastic or styrene cubes?
well, there you could use either Plastistruct, which is a little bit more difficult to work with than the styrene, but you could use either styrene tubes or a solid, it's just solid round stock of styrene. If you use the tube, and depending on what you're doing, you can always take a blade or a bit or something, and we'll show these techniques, but you can thin it down to make it really thin. You could also use some brass tubing too. Don't forget about that. Or a big hunk of wire. And we'll look at some techniques of taking those materials and turning them into things. But specifically, what are you trying to do with the styrene here? I'm sorry, I missed that that part of the question.
Oh, I just brought that up. I don't know. And the ice blocks would be rectangular. They wouldn't be round, wouldn't they?
No, they would be rectangular, and you could just use some heavy acrylic. I'm planning on using some heavy acrylic, but there's also a couple of other techniques that we'll look at to create ice blocks when we get down to that detailing level. But I'm kind of thinking one easy material would be like 1/4 inch acrylic. Another thing that you could utilize is some frosted Scotch tape, and you put a Mod Podge over that, and you can make it that way. There's a couple of different techniques that we can utilize and look at when we get there, but we need to kind of get down to that, and then we'll get some good long discussions going about the detailing sections of the build.
You might
Thank you.
want to add resin casting to that too, clear resin casting.
Right.
It's another method.
Yeah, and that might be a lot easier than the acrylics, quite frankly. But okay, let's see here. So
Chris,
the next,
it's
go
Pat
on ahead.
Rivard here.
Yes.
Somebody just said on the chat that it's available from Tichy Crane Group. Tichy has the square ice blocks.
Yeah, they do. There's a couple of different manufacturers out there that actually make that detail item. I quite frankly have not searched for it on Shapeways, so I don't know if it's available on Shapeways or not. And if you've got a 3D printer, I'm not sure how that would print out. But anyway, that's another potential thing, because we might be able to paint it to make it look like an ice block that's kind of frosted over. So anyway.
There's one other thing I wanted to mention, Chris. On the back side of that building, one could bring in a spur track to bring in say a carload of sawdust or something for use in insulation. That'd be one.
That's a real good idea.
And refrigerator cars used to use a lot of ice. So you could have yourself a spur coming in there containing one of these cars that you could load up the blocks in.
Yeah.
Refrigerator cars.
And I'm thinking about, as we've had this conversation, just to kind of let people know where my mind is going, I'm thinking about having a little like oversized coal bin, maybe, three-sided that we can throw sawdust into, and then have like a Model T or a Model A truck with kind of like a conveyor extension coming off of it, like what Greenberg and Nash used to build, some of those type of things. And for those of you that are familiar with those guys, and kind of build that up so that you've got a homemade conveyor belt using a truck, an old truck in the transmission of the truck to run your conveyor to lift the sawdust or potentially ice up to a higher level in the storage facility. The other thing is the hydroxide or the ammonia storage. I don't know if that would take, or if that was delivered in a dry or in a liquid. And if so, that gives us a whole different opportunity, particularly if it's a liquid, to look at using some above ground tanks or something, and maybe putting those on the opposite side of the tracks and running some piping over and into the structure. So that's something else to consider in your planning process and detailing process. Okay. Any other thoughts here, guys? This is meant to be interactive, so I don't want to be the only one talking away.
Chris, are we going to design an actual floor plan of this so it can be laid out on the layout to give us an idea how much room it's going to take up?
Well, that's the thing. We've got the 3 different plan sets up there right now on our website, or if not, they'll be there very shortly. We're still putting our crew together and getting everybody trained and stuff in the background. And I know William, who is in France, by the way, has been working diligently to get stuff posted. And Richard has drawn a floor plan set that earlier that I'm going to also have posted on the website. So that stuff is there. And plus you've got Paul Egre's stuff to kind of give you a base to draw from. You can just download that and basically cut it out and fold it over and use some tape, and you've got yourself a mock-up and ready to go, and you can cut that to size as need be. Hopefully that answers those questions. But yeah, Richard did come up with a more traditional floor plan like what you were discussing. I don't know if his
Can
drawing.
I say something here?
Sure.
I didn't really draw the floor plan yet because I thought that if someone looked at my rendering drawings or my sketches and didn't like the actual size of what I drew, that's not cut in stone. They can make the building any size they want. So in getting back to what Pat mentioned, if I draw a floor plan and someone, like I said, doesn't want to build it that size, they don't have to. They're not bound by what I have.
They can always take that.
Yeah, you're
can always take-
absolutely correct. And the plans that I'm referring to are some plans that Richard originally sent me back, I believe it was on the 19th. And they were part of his first draft renderings. But for me, I think they're good enough for our concept drawing and kind of what we're working with. So I think we'll go on ahead and use those, unless Richard wants to stand on his head, scream up and down and stomp that he doesn't want them posted. So, because they are just that
I don't care.
preliminary draft ones. So there
They
you
can
go.
always
So
take
we'll
that-
get those loaded in the next day or two, or very shortly, I should say. And everybody can look forward to using that. Or again, excuse me, go on ahead and draw up your own real quick if you need to do that. I typically don't draw my foundation floor plan until I get my structure built. And then that way I know that my floor plan or my foundation will fit my structure, because I kind of use the loosey-goosey approach when I scratch build and put all of my things together. So you'll see that as we kind of move forward here.
I have
And,
another item if I'd like to address. I noticed the notification in the chats from Dave Maynard. Did I say that right, sir?
It's Menard.
Okay. You mentioned you doubt that there would be an electric freezer on the front porch.
I just
In,
kind of jumped out at me.
no, but I put it in my drawing only because Todd Gamble had it in his rendering. And without knowing what era he drew his structure for, that's why I put it there, because it is an ice building. So
Yeah.
if someone was modeling like Jamie does in the 1952, it would be there.
Correct. Yep.
yeah, and I chose this structure because it was kind of a base type structure concept that we could use anywhere from 1880 to 1980. It's readily adaptable to whatever you're doing, and so it's a real just that it's a concept. So but excellent comment and excellent thoughts. So it's just like the condensing units and stuff. That's why I was saying I'm not sure what kind of condenser we would have, because it could be a real heavy mechanical type thing, or it could be something that's kind of behind the vents and stuff. So these are all decisions that you get to make as a scratch builder, and that's part of the joy of scratch building. You have to think a little bit about what we're doing outside the box.
Excuse me, I have one other thing I want to mention before you leave this program today and all the participants are gone. And it's off topic. I'm really sorry for this interruption. But when you stop this recording today, are you going to be on there for a few minutes before everyone leaves? Because I'd really like to have Mr. Pat Rivard stay on for a few minutes.
Okay, yeah. And again, that brings up two things that I wanted to bring up from the past. First of all, I've got to apologize to everybody for cutting everybody off so abruptly last week. For those that were here, you were on the meeting and then you weren't. And that's because I'm learning the controls to the YouTube and the Zoom, and I hit the wrong X. And so that was fully on me. The other thing is I meant to open up this meeting with kind of a tip for all of the modelers out there. I'm sure those of us that have been around for a couple of years already have figured this one out. But if there's somebody that's kind of new and picking this up, my best modeling tip that I can provide to any modeler of any type of an object is twofold. Number one is outstanding lighting, because good lighting is going to make magnification really valuable. And I wear a set of Optivisor on my head. And I use I believe it's a number 5 lens. In this one, yes, it's the number 5 is what I keep in there all the time. And I believe that's like about a 3.5 magnification. Yeah, Pat's got his on. And you need to determine really what kind of magnification you want to use. There's over the head, there's the stuff in the lamps or something. But whenever you sit down at the modeling bench, the first thing you should reach for is to turn on the lights. And the second thing is the magnifier. If you want to improve your modeling, the biggest and the easiest way to improve your modeling is using magnification. So that's something that will be gained over years, but up front, spend a few dollars, get yourself something that magnifies, and you will find that your modeling improves dramatically as soon as you start doing that. And I don't care if you're young or old, it works the same. And quite frankly, I wear my Optivisor so much that I have gone not once, but twice to the grocery store, and I'm walking around the grocery store with my Optivisor on. And I have figured out that, you know, the looks I get when people are looking
I
at me
guess you
really
would.
weird, you just pick up a can, turn it around and pull down the optivisor like you're reading the label, and nobody asks any questions.
I'm
So,
afraid to.
yeah. And I cannot tell you the number of times I have answered the door for the pizza boy or for the Amazon guy with the head of with my optivisors on, and it's just because I wear them all the time. So find something that you're comfortable with, but use it. That is the big thing, and that is probably the biggest tip and the biggest thing that I can provide all modelers is to use.
And a light magnifier helps too.
Yeah, and a light. Good lighting is imperative. And when we get into the paints and aspects of paints and coloring, we'll discuss a few things about light and light sources and things and how that affects your finishes and things. But anyway, I'm going to get off of that bandwagon and I'm going to go on ahead and say I'm going to keep this thing going unless we need to shut it down because we're coming up on about an hour and 20 minutes and might as well take it for an hour and a half and then start looking at shutting it down. There's two things that I wanted to bring up that if you don't have, that I'm going to bring up. Number one is, I'm going to try to show this here and let's see here. Let's see, I'm trying to show this. Let me share the screen down here. Drink rat poison. And come on. More and spotlight for everybody. Okay, and well, I'm using a Bristol board. It's a 120 plate, and it's a smooth rendering. And this is by Borden and Riley. And this Bristol board is 120 pound. For those of you that are in the European world, I believe it's about, well, I thought I had it on here and I don't. So I don't know the GSM. They measure things differently over there. For those that are curious, it's about the thickness of a thick business card. It is 0.015. So
50 kilograms
wide here when I looked at my dial calipers. So that's what I'm kind of coming up with. So on the thickness, and it's just kind of an eggshell color type thing. So it's really beneficial. If you go out and pick up some Bristol board, I would kind of suggest in getting it in a light gray, kind of an eggshell, or in a black if you are contemplating using it on the interiors of walls. But it's a good product to kind of work with. And the other thing that I'm going to start doing once I put my dimensions onto this Bristol board is I'm going to start the cutout with a good old number 16 X-Acto knife blade. Now, a lot of people don't think about using the different knife blades. The first thing you guys go out for and grab is like the number 11. And for years and years and years, I did too. And the thing is this number 16, for those of you that don't use them very often, is actually designed to be kind of used on friskets or scribing. And because the blade is shorter, you will find that the heel of the blade does not cut into your work as easily, and you can actually cut out windows, doors, and a few other things a lot easier with this blade than using the number 11 blade. You have a lot more control with this blade. So if you guys don't have the number 16 blade loaded in one of your handles, and you haven't, or you've got them hanging out, but you just keep the old number 11 in there, you might consider, just for fun, dragging it out. And as we kind of go through this build, or your where you're in the next phase of your build where you might be doing something like this, drag this sucker out and give it a chance to show the power of the blade. So that kind of brings me up towards the hour-and-a-half mark for today. I'd like to know from people if the hour-and-a-half or 2 hours or 1 hour, does anybody have any real strong feelings about the length of this show? I apologize, we didn't actually get into the cutting today. We kind of spent a little bit more time than I was anticipating on the concept drawing, but we'll go on ahead and get past that so we can get some fingers actually doing some work and get the arthritis worked out of our fingers next Saturday. But how about some input on the length of the show? Does this hour-and-a-half or an hour work? What kind of are you looking for out there?
I think today, the hour-and-a-half was good to get a good foundation. Seeing you're working, from the drawing we're working from, there's a lot of ifs, but and just different people's ideas and approaches. But and even getting a plan, if people like to follow plans, or if they're comfortable with just a sketch. My plan is something that you could actually put a jig and build over, especially if you're going to do, if you did individual boards, you'd have to do a framing. So you need to do a scale plan, or, well, you don't have to do a scale plan. You can just, when somebody showed the dividers, I forget the gentleman, but I use those and I transfer dimensions. And it's easier to transfer dimensions with those than trying to take a measuring device, a scale rule, and measure something and then take that scale rule over it. It's much more accurate with a pair of dividers, say like a window that you have on hand, because that's what my build I got on my, well, kind of, it's on my desk right now. I'm painting a room. But yeah, I went and got ready-made windows. And so I just used the dividers on those and transferred, and I made a jig, or a little plug, I should say a plug. So when it came to doing the wall, laying up the wall where I wanted the window, I would just position the plug. And again, I'm building this on a piece of paper that's got 1/4-inch grid paper.
Okay.
It's readily available. And that happens because I'm a no scale. That works for me. I don't know other scales. I can't talk to that. So.
Okay. How about a couple of other folks? We've got like Neil Hardwick. Neil, have you got any thoughts on the length of this show? I'm going to bring in a few people that haven't spoken up yet.
Yep.
Neil, you need to unmute yourself if you would, please. And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, everything, we got a lot of talent in this group here, and I'm willing to sit here for 2 hours and listen to what they have to say. So I'm very happy. And I think the other point is for you, and what's good for you.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Can I add something?
Feel free, go on ahead, Tom.
Okay. Having been a teacher for 40 years, I'm not anymore. I know that if you let things ramble forever, they'll ramble forever.
Right.
I think that you're going to have to structure your time, your visitors, your activities into a certain, pick an hour and a half and say an hour and a half, we're going to cut off the recording. And if you want to hang around and yak after that, it's unofficial from here on. But get your job done within that hour and a half.
Excellent input.
And then, like I say, rambling after that is fine, but you'll be at this at 3 o'clock, on any time scale in the afternoon.
Right. I am planning on in the future, not making it always an hour and a half or an hour, because as we go through the building process, there's going to be natural breaking points, where it makes sense to kind of break it. And so if I need to go 5 or 10 minutes one way or the other, I'm going to do that. That's the intent of the format, but you're absolutely right on trying to keep this down. What I'm trying to determine is if people want to go for an hour, 2 hours, or an hour and a half, what's kind of good for you folks out here? What are you thinking on going? And again, we're still developing the format here a little bit, but Tom's input is absolutely dead on in my mind, and I appreciate him bringing it up because it is something that we need to, basically, for the newer builders, we need to tell them what we're going to tell them, and then tell them we told them. So anyway, thank you. And let me go to some of the folks that are actually on the opposite end of the country and maybe kind of freezing and have on some jackets. How about Larry Mcdonald there in Toronto? What is your thoughts on the length of this show? Just I'm trying to get a little bit of feedback.
I understand what Tom was saying. I agree. It's just like on the Wednesday shows, and we have the after show if people want to, stay on and ramble a little bit, and with Clark and stuff like that. And yeah, if you're you're going to structure, you're in charge, you're doing this. This is your show. And like you say, sometimes it could be short because there's going to be periods in the build where, like any build, it's time to take a break, whether it's you have to wait till the paint dries or the glue dries or whatever it be, and then move on.
Okay.
The next day.
Okay. And then let me just get a piece of input from somebody who I know has done multiple articles, taught, and who is a lot more experienced at this type of stuff than am I. And good old Martin Beckball, those of you that are on our normal show know Martin and his expertise with railroad cars. And I might say that I was doing a little bit of research on some stuff for this, and I ran into some articles. God, I think they were about in the 80s, that Martin wrote about making railroad cars back then. And I think it was for an NMRA division. But anyway, Martin, what are your thoughts about this length of time and the scratch building and everything? Because you have a little bit of knowledge and thoughts on this.
I think you've gotten some pretty good advice already. I mean, setting aside a block of time that's preset. We're going to spend 90 minutes doing this. I think that's important. Having people know when an endpoint is, but at the same time, sometimes you're only going to need 70, unless you want to sit around and watch paint dry, and there's limited excitement involved in that. Okay, some people might really find that exciting. I don't know.
Okay.
But that's because. But then I always have 5 different projects on my spread across my shop. I have a big shop, so I'm always walking around between the 5, 6 different projects simultaneously. So paint's drying at one end, glue's drying in the middle, and I'm cutting something at the other end. Now, I'm a compulsive multitasker. That does not work for very many other people, the way I do things. A certain amount of limited sanity involved in it. So yeah, so structure I think is kind of important if you're going to put on a regular show.
Okay.
You need a structure, and if you want to have 90 minutes and then another half an hour of gas bagging or whatever you want to call it, all the better.
All right.
You may get more good Q&A done in that 30 minutes after the first 90. If you need the full 90 to really get into something and develop it and describe it and cover a lot of territory, you may want to say, hey, we'll hold the questions to the 91st minute.
Okay. All right. The other thing that I'm going to do, guys, if I come across, just to give you some idea for feedback, take this into consideration. If we come up with a show that for some reason a good breaking point is the 70 minutes, that'd leave us like 20 minutes. For that type of thing, I was thinking about taking a few extra minutes and going around and just having people show us what's on their workbench. So I don't think that that would scare too many people out there, but, you know, if people would really be adverse to that or something, please let me know. Other than that, I think I'm going to go on ahead and kind of call this one a show. And I again want to thank everybody for attending. Please, please give us another day or two to get those items up on the website. We do have quite a few things up there right now. We quite frankly have just, Paul Egree was lucky to have another addition to his family this week. So he's dealing with the birth of a new grandchild and all of the time things that go along with that, as I'm sure most of us have experienced. Some of us are still learning the tools and the applications that we use on the backside and the training sessions. So we are working very diligently to bring you a product that you can utilize. The bottom line here is that we are constantly uploading files. And if you will spot check the page on the NewTracks website here over the course of this coming week, you'll probably find that it is continuing to expand as we can get stuff up. But right now, there are some things up there that you can start to utilize and can download at your convenience and kind of start get going and think about this thing. So again, thank everybody again for joining us, and everybody have a wonderful week, and I will see you guys here this next week. If you want to stick around for a few more minutes, we're going to try to have a chit chat session after I cut off the YouTube, and hopefully I will not kill the entire YouTube channel, Zoom channel, and cut everybody off like last go around.
1 second before you leave. The drawings that are on NewTracks Ice House project, I don't know if you looked at them or Jim looked at them. I think Jim looked at them because he thanked me for putting them on. I left my signature on the left elevation drawing. That's not part of the model. So if you guys get a chance to look at that, please do.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, there you go, everybody. And everybody have a good one. And I'll see those of you that wish here in the chat session. And Ken, if I just click the end button down here, that should do it without cutting everybody off. Is that correct? I don't know if Ken's still on.
If you end and leave, everybody will be cut off.
Okay, so if I